I hope you can hear me. There are so few of us, so I don't have to use the mic, I guess. Right? So I'm the first local presenter in this room. My name is Marti. I'm working around here in Tallinn, today in Elion Enterprises. And my whole connection to the certification topic today is via Estonian Project Management Association. It's a local association who is also helping this event here to organize, as you see on this bullet board. And I'm actually now responsible in this organization for certifications of project management. And today it's kind of both. It's the local Estonian certification and it's IPMA-based certifications that we're talking about. From my own side, I have IPMA Level C certification. And in addition to that, I have been working with two groups of people or two groups of kind of students who have been studying for preparation of certification and who have passed the exam after that. So I've facilitated the training. About the training process or how it should work, I will come back to that later. Well, that's the main essence of this presentation. And I'm going to most likely be more practical than the two previous presentations. So I'm going to talk about how things could actually, or how you can actually have a certification. But before we go to that, how many certified project managers are around this room? Which kind of certifications? Right? IPMA on the far side?
APM,
which is basically yes.
You don't product owner?
That's a different certification, but it kind of links to this part also. So product owner is definitely something that can be a shared responsibility with project manager or with certified project manager.
And you can have both certifications.
Exactly, so not only one. So if we talk about certifications, then I want to talk about, I mainly talk about IPMA, but I want to actually talk about three big certifications that are around or are popular in this region. So first of all, there is an organization called PMI, based or started from United States, been around since the end of the 60s, called Project Management Institute. They have a main project manager certification called PMP, Project Management Professional. And then they have additional certifications, which is Project Administrator. I'm not sure about the abbreviations, but I will write it like that. And they have a Program Management Professional. And they actually have also a certification now, which links very much to the product owner, which is called Agile PMP. So this is one big group. Second one, organization IPMA, International Project Management Association, has 4-level, more kept together or more tight certification. So IPMA has levels. Level D, C, B, and A. A is basically a program manager. D is a project assistant. Kind of equality. It's not exactly defined like that, but this is how it will work. C and P are independent project managers, which is something into this region. P and P is somewhere in between those two. And I have this independent level C project manager certification. And all of this that I'm going to talk, how to prepare and how to do that, I'm actually going to talk from my experience, what we did around here. And then we have the Prince 2 certification, which was also 2 people in this room. There is an organization called Office of Government Commerce. Is it right? From the correct country?
No.
No? So which is it?
The office of OGC was stopped about 4 years ago, and it was all transferred to the Cabinet Office. The Cabinet Office has now sold off the whole of Prince Dugu, done by the by the Domestic Government, to something called Axilos.
But it still originates from...
Still starts from there, from
yes.
the 1970s.
Exactly. And the methodology is called Prince 2, Project in Controlled Environment, is the long name. And they have 2 levels of certifications. One is practitioner and the other one...
Foundation.
Foundation, exactly.
Prince 2. Must know it's got the 2.
Exactly, thank you. When it comes to Prince 2, then my understanding of the whole certification here is that this is more comparable to school kind of education, where you go learn theory, take an exam, and then start to work as a project manager.
It's a qualification.
Exactly.
It's not a membership organisation like IPMA members are or PMI is. So there is nothing to join once you've got Prince 2. You're just part of a Prince 2 community.
Exactly. So you have everybody has a possibility to be part of the community, to go and study and to take the exam and have a certification that will prove that you have the knowledge and know-how about the tools and methods needed. Coming back to the first page, these 2 include more. First of all, there is the fully organized community, so that you have a belonging to an organization, which is existing here. All of these certifications include a need for practical experience or a practical life experience. So both of everything you choose from here is something that will prove that in addition to the theory you answer an exam, you also have a practical experience, you have been trying out, you have been using these methods, and you have actual...
Not for all
feedback.
levels. The PMIs couple this PA.
Yep.
And IPMA-D doesn't have this
Yes, you're
requirement
correct.
in the package.
So let's cross this out. If we talk about project assistance, in both sides, then these don't actually require the experience, but everything that is connected to either independent project manager or a program manager requires an experience, and it's also proof that you have actual experience and you have a company that is ready to sign off, or a manager that is ready to sign off the experience that you have. Yes, let's go forward. So, more about background. Why to invest into certification? So, I have actually 2 views here. This slide is, or these details are more about why a company should invest into certification of its employees or their employees. So, the main essence that I see for a business to start certifying their project managers is to actually boost the confidence in your company and in your products and in the projects you're selling outside. So if you have a company, you have your portfolio, go outside, for example, Estonian company, go outside Estonia, then the next thing you need to know, you have a portfolio here, but do you have anything international or anything to support that you can run and you can actually deliver project? So it's very much a boost of confidence or a sales argument. It's very much a motivation to your own employees. And it's very much the thing to follow if you do public sector projects. Part of my project manager experience has been Framework 7 programs in European Commission, or European Commission Framework 7 development programs. Everything that was required on the Commission side was exactly according to IPMA standards and IPMA tools that they have been providing. So all the project plans, the description, so on, everything is built around what this framework suggests or how it works. So this will give you a good confidence. And also here in Estonia, we have been talking about public tenders. So the idea is that at some point in the future, at least some tenders you do require that you have a certified project manager running this. Today, this is not yet an exact thing or agreed thing, but this is the direction that we are moving. If you do a public tender, then it's very good to have this part added. Now to the easiest part. Why did I do that? So this is for us as project managers. The first thing is the main reason. I mean, I learned something new. I learned new methods. I learn new ways of working with people. I learn new ways of working with conflict. So this is what it comes down to. Then you definitely have some experience. This is a proof. You can see if things you are doing are actually acknowledged in an international level, or you are doing things right, or you are doing things right way. Do better in projects, which is pretty straightforward. New tools, new ideas, new results. Building a network of support. So this is something that also Estonian Project Management Association is working with or is supporting of, is to have a network of professionals around. One thing is that you know the people in Estonia. There is not so many certified project managers, so we actually have talked to most of them, I guess. I'm not 100% sure though, because it's never been exactly in details identified how many project managers are certified in Estonia. But we think we have contact with most of them. Yes, and if you do the certification and the preparation here, then most likely you do it in a group, and this group will be around to ask help, to talk to find friends or people who do with the same work in the same area. And last but not least, it's your own careers and competitiveness. So this is where it, again, in Estonia, not so popular yet, but if I look at the job ads anywhere else in Europe or in the States, then it's one of the 3 big certifications that is required. If you want to become a project manager in UK, then most likely in the job ad you will find that it's required to have either PMI, IPMA or Prince2 certification.
Or equivalent.
Or equivalent, yes.
That's a nice phrase. So they might say PMP or equivalent. They might say PMP or IPMA level C or equivalent.
Exactly.
So any good qualification will help.
Yes, and in UK it will be most likely be the APM, which is?
Don't mind, it could be clear. You want people to be qualified.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yes, but that's where it helps us. And I think also from my own experience, I mean, if I go to work as a project manager or as a manager, if my CV includes the certification, then this is definitely a proof, or this is a topic that will come around. It's not mandatory yet, according to ads in Estonia, but I guess it will be, or it will improve, as there will be more project managers around. There is one more thing that I actually like to draw or talk about before we go into details on how to prepare. The whole certification, and now I will mainly be talking about IPMA certification. If you want to certify someone, or if you want to find the proof of something, then you have to have at least the areas of in what you find the proof. So it's first of all, the skills that you want to prove are technical skills. Technical skills in project management means I know how to find stakeholders, I know how to write scope, how to agree scope, I know how to handle risks, and so on. So it's plain technical project management professional tools and skills. The second one is is behavior. So you would like to assess, also the previous presenter was talking about project manager as a perfect manager. So you want to assess how the project manager interacts with the team, how he or she manages the team and so on. Behavior, and if we talk about what is the details here, it's management, conflict handling, communication. It's more soft, yes. This is hard. This is really hard project management skills. Then it's behavior, which is soft management skills. And then the last thing is content. Projects are not alone in sealed environment. So you have context. You have the company around you with its structures. You have other projects around. You have programs around which cover the projects. You have portfolios and management boards making decisions on your projects and things like that. So IPMA certifications, at least the pre-hired ones, include all of these areas. Main focus will be here, but you never can forget about the behavior nor the context. So this is also background. And if we want to do a little bit of comparison, then my understanding of PMP certification is that it will focus more here. We already had previously in this room mentioned the book called PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. Focus is very clearly here. What's the tools, what's the processes, how this works and how you can set it up. It focuses less in these two things.
There are complementary books that focus on this behavioral aspects
and we actually,
of PMP, but still, you're right.
We actually come to that also. Well, from PMP books not so much, but where to find the information. So, some of you know, some of you don't, but what it takes to have a certification. And here is clearly my experience of having the IPMA Level C certification. And I did it now 2.5 years back, or something like that. So I have 2.5 years more, and then I have to update it. So first of all, there are some preconditions, not too harsh, but the first thing, you need 3 years of experience. Experience here, it's stated in the IPMA material that it's project work experience, but there's expectancy that at least in some projects you have to manage your role. And it has to cover 3 years in total. The next ones will be a little, not so direct. So first, high school education, which is pretty simple and or pretty common. And then you have to have know-how of IPMA competences. If I'm not mistaken with the number, then you can correct me, but to my memory, there is 46 competences. Right. And all of these 46 divide into technical, behavior, and context. I'm not going to write numbers here, but because I don't remember by heart which, in which group are how many, but basically there are like 15 here, and then a little less into these next ones, or similar. So you have to have background knowledge about these competencies, need to know what they are, and you need to, at least on some level, you need to use those, or have been using those. Second part is a homework that you do for the whole preparation. There is also 3 main things. You have to collect your track record, and if I talked about track record before, then we talked about the proof track record. So it has to be a signed off track record by somebody you have been working together with, or who has been your manager when you have been doing the project. Then there's a mandatory preparational document called, or which can be named One Project Story. What it means is that you have to write about one of your projects, an essay which is about 10 pages or something like that, so pretty long one. And it includes information about the competencies. So it's the 46 competencies. You basically have to write an essay in format that in this project, which was so and so and so, to manage success, we agreed these kind of success criteria, and in the end, it turned out to be a very good result, or vice versa. So the idea is that you have to prove that you have used the competencies, not all 46, but there is also minimum limits on all the groups. So you have to explain like 8 technical competencies and 6 behavior and 6 or context or something like that. But the idea is that you have used the competencies and you will prove in the written format also that you have used them. And then the last homework or last preparation work is self-assessment. Of course, this is not last because after that comes studying for the actual exam, but we'll come to that. Self-assessment means that you have to assess yourself both in theory and practice on all the 46 competencies. So you take first success management in projects. You think in theory you are 7 out of 10 and in practice you're 6 out of 10. And that's what you do with all the competencies. There is also, on level C, there was a minimum limit of 5.5 out of 10, I think. So you need to have average on all the groups, 5.5. And then it comes to exam. The exam is in 3 steps. For us, it was made in 1 day, but it can also be in 2 separate days. First, written exam. Very straightforward, also consisting of actually 3 parts. It's a 4-hour exam. You can use all the materials, but there are a lot of questions, and most likely you don't have time to look up everything. First of all, there is multiple choice questions. Then it's open text questions and answers, and then it's a couple of longer situation-like questions. How would you behave with this kind of question? Then it's group work. The basics of group work is it's also a 4-hour work. The examinants are divided into groups, and each of the groups are given an exercise. The exercise looks something like that hey, we have a project here, there's something agreed, we have spent some money, we don't have any results, and the project manager went to another company. Please fix the budget, plan, risks, and so on. Very much a learning point for every project manager to see how this should be done. And then the group has to kind of solve this, and the examination body is acting like a steering group or acting like a management board for the company you do the project for. For me, this was pretty much learning how can you present and do stuff. Not so much as an exam, but it can be also different attitudes towards it. Last part is interview. It's 1-to-1, so not 1-to-1, but 1 to the committee. So every candidate goes to talk to the committee, mainly about the experience and mainly about the things that can be found here. If you know something really well, then you can, it can be a topic. If there's something you're weak in, then it can be a topic. But it's 1-to-1 interview, and it's a little bit depends on where it goes. Or it goes to the project story, if there's something to be found there, or it goes to some of the answers that are given. And at the end of this exam, you will have a result. And since I started with the fact that I've been working with 2 groups in Estonia, then both of the groups were 6 people, and out of these 12, 11 went to the exam and all 11 passed. One of the guys didn't have time to fix all this. He had the track record, but he didn't find the possibility to do this, and he has actually not went to the exam yet. And now to the studying process. there's a nice quote from Mark Twain, but I would pick out of this quote actually mostly that you need to have the confidence that you know the tools, the techniques, and the way forward. So first of all, unfortunately, it remains kind of a school period. So there's a lot of studying expected to be done by yourself. The materials, I will be also coming to the materials, but there's a lot of material to read. There is methods to memorize. There is tools to memorize. And please expect that you will need time for that.
You can make it easier by attending preparation courses, which usually last 5-6 full days. And
Yes.
split to several weeks, like 2 days later.
But it will still include studying at home. I mean, it will still include reading, it will still include memorizing, it will still include doing something by your own handwriting, doing calculations and so on. So that's the first part. I talked about, or I mentioned that I will talk about material. So this is the books that I used for my exam. Mainly free. PM book, body of knowledge, very much the technical competencies and very good processes for risk management and calculations and so on. Then there's a book up which is called Better Practices of Project Management According to IPMA Competencies. This is something that will explain and add process to every one of these 46 competencies. So it actually takes one by one. The book adds the process and the detailed description of what it is, how you can use it, and it also adds real-life examples. And if I'm not mistaken, then the author was
John Herman.
yes, exactly, from Australia. So most of the examples come to that region. So if we talk about international project management, then you can have really nice examples from all the way around the world. And there's an IPMA released kind of also body of knowledge, which is IPMA competence baseline. This is a short descriptive material. It has also these 46 competencies, but it has kind of 2-3 pages per each. No examples, no details, just plain information what it is and how it can be used. And there's definitely books to add. For example, PMI has a book called Exam Preparation book, which is basically a book of multiple choice questions, about 600 pages, about each of the technical topics that are in PM book. So quite a lot of information, you can have a lot of reading, and this is something that will take you back here. All this material is pretty extensive, especially the exercises you do, so you will come back to this picture. Now to some better part. What we have done here in Tallinn now is preparation groups. Last time we had a group as a total of 6. It was from Elion, Tiedo, and Regio. So not in one company, but collected via the Estonian Association. And we did 6 sessions together. We first of all, we had a meeting with introductory meeting of the examinators or the examining body with IVAS. And we had some hints of what are the interesting topics and where to find calculations and so on. So what we did, we actually chose about 10 topics. And for each time we met, we prepared, well, I prepared materials and all the rest read from the books what is written on that topic. And we had this kind of discussion forums for 2 to 3 hours per one time. And yeah, I think this was a very good way to do the studying. And I think that's the reason also why the success rate in these groups has been quite high. So it is really helpful to come together, to discuss, to find ways and to do the calculations.
Was it for free? Or?
No, it wasn't fully for free. But it was, let's say that it was to cover the cost. I mean, since Project Management Association is a non-profit organization, then there was not a huge price included, but we did a package which included IPMAC certification and the costs for the study group, and also the cost for the books. And when we talk about the books, then everyone in this group got this better practices of project management. Yes, next picture, the details. What is expected on the exam is that you know how to write your plan, you know what is a block diagram, how to set it up, you know what is a Gantt chart, how the connections or relations work between different tasks. So you need to look into details. It's not enough if you know in theory that Gantt chart is something that has the bars and looks nice and colorful and so on. And the block chart has schema with lines and blocks and so on. But you need to be able to do the actual calculation exercises for plans. Definitely for risks, and I think there was more topics like that. But the main thing, one more thing to do to be ready is taking a trial or a test exam. So what we did with both of these groups was we Googled a little bit. We found test exams, which actually turned out to be pretty much similar to not the same questions that we had in the exam, but in the same region. So we were able to find some materials, and we come together with this group and we did the written exam. I think we took last time 1 hour, and we did multiple choices so that you can understand how the questions are set up and how it's done. And I think it was, for every one of us, it was much easier to answer this a second time around, or when you already know how these questions are set up and what is expected. I think the first time when we did this trial exam in our own premises, it was a surprise for everybody. I mean, the questions sounded to be difficult, and the language used was quite difficult. We all took the exam in English, so it was not the native language. And for now, in our region, it's also possible to take it in Russian. But yes, try it. I mean, this will help a lot. You can try out, and you can see what the questions are and what it feels like. I think we have covered mainly these things, so what to focus on, but just to add up here or to summarize, calculations. Everywhere in the book you can find calculation, it can be in the exam. That's the basic rule. So if you have the calculations, then try those out. Try doing some yourself and try seeing how it works. Then there's practical methods like running workshops and techniques. Then if there's something specific to the certification type you go, then definitely this is something to focus on. Then it's project life cycle, so how it starts, how it from idea to an actual or to the end of the project, and then this organization and structures. I think it was pretty big part, and mainly here it is necessary to understand that you have an organization which has its own structure, with its departments, units, and everybody working on their daily work, and then you have a project on the other side. And the project may also have a structure. You have a main project, you have some sub-projects under that, you have project manager, you have architect, you have administrator supporting, and so on. So finding the key differences and how these two things fit together. Yes, and on the exam day, just as I told, the main difficulty you will face is the written exam. So don't panic. Try to memorize how the materials were set up. From my own experience, I know that I pretty much tend to remember pictures of things. So if I know that I have the material on the table, then I most likely know that in which region of the page the thing is located. So if you have the possibility to memorize where the topics are, then you have the possibility to look up those. But since there's a lot of questions, then it can't be applied to everything. It can be applied to some difficult ones. And don't forget the materials, since there is, it's not allowed to use digital materials, but it is allowed to use all the books. So you can take the books, but yeah, as I thought, not too much time for that. And be open-minded means that, especially for this workshop part, this is something you can learn from, not think of it only as an assessment, but your own learning patch. One more thing, then you can celebrate if you have done the actual exam. And well, after the exam, you have to realize the benefits somehow. This is also more of a company or a business view, but you can now do better in your projects. You can now update your CV, and you can update your companies or personnel CVs. You can update your sales materials that, hey, we have these guys who are certified now actually working with our projects. And you can include into negotiations and definitely update your portfolio. And that would be all from preparation side or from my side. Do you have any questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, I have one. I've been managing some software projects, well, not for all of my professional life, but for some. And I did some before certification and some after certification. To be honest, I didn't spot so large change. And all of these methods, they have lots of formalities about how to develop plans, plan resources, calculate deviations, manage risks, and all that. I have a question to maybe not only you, but also the audience. Have anybody experienced a software project where any of those formal plans, risk mappings, have been useful for more than, let's say, a week from their development point? Personally, I haven't.
They will definitely not be if you will not update them after 1 week.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of these artifacts and tools are useful if you have them up to date. Also, if there will become changes. But actually, from my side, which I found most interesting is that after we did the exam, or actually after we did the learning, there was one thing that everybody, or most of the people from the group started using. It's the WebS work breakdown structure. It's a basic thing that nobody actually ever used before. And then we did the workshop, sat together, and after that we found out that, hey, we actually did this our projects, and it helped to at least find out how it's divided, how the work divides, and how it's set up.
So it's assuming you know what to do with the project.
Yes, it's assuming at least to some level. I mean, especially with software projects, it's clear that you will not go all the way from the top to the beginning and plan everything and have all the work structured and so on. But you have your first iterations if you go agile. You have your minimum viable product that you can go to market with. You still have something set up.
I would say that depends very much on the project scale. My friend is in Africa implementing SAP in big manufacturing, and yeah, I think he worked a lot in planning and creating and still using it. But for example, in some software development where people work for American customers who order web development, they receive each sprint something new. That depends on the skill.
Okay.
So my question was related somewhat to this topic, right? So what if it's not a project, what if it's a product, and what if it's like agile software industry where this whole long planning process is totally almost abandoned, you know, really focused on, as you said, MVP or something like that.
But I would also say, add here that it's also human psychology and humans work so that you can plan in details like the next 3 months, you know, when you go to vacation and when you have some events on the weekends and so on, and everything that is beyond that is something that is now more open still. So all the agile way, you have the same tool, technique, but you go to short period. And then you add more, you add the next layer, and you add the next layer on that one. So you go into the details, you use the same tools, but the period is not so long. So you have the MVPs, minimum viable products, for example. Or you have a sprint if it's a long one. But you still have details.
Can I just tell you what's going on in the UK with qualifications? It's really taken off. There's a lot happening, and it's about whether project management is a profession, or it's a trade, or is it a competence, or is it 46 competencies? This is all being discussed, and it's coming down to a phrase which is called qualified for what you do. And there's a lot of people involved in project management who are qualified, but not in project management. You know, they went, and as well as these vocational groups you're talking about, you can now study project management at university. An undergraduate degree, it might be for IT or it might be for construction. A lot of people doing postgraduate project management as well. And there's a discussion, so is it a new profession or is it an old profession? Now, old professions for us are things like accountancy and the medicine and the law. Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's engineering, like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, civil engineering or architecture. They all seem to be engineering. Or maybe it's what we call a modern management profession, like public relations or marketing or human relations and personnel and training. And there's discussions going on, where does it fit? Maybe it's a trade, maybe it's like being a hairdresser or a taxi driver or a butcher or a baker. You know, the thing is, do you want a butcher to come around and cut your hair? Do you want a hairdresser to operate on your cat? You know, no, you want a vet. So what they're saying is we want people qualified for what they do, and that means project management. If they ask you the question and you say, well, I'm qualified in history or qualified in electrical engineering, then it doesn't cut as much. So that's happened in the last few years. We can see this accelerating. People, when they mention projects, they ask who's going to project manage it. That's the first question they ask. And they say, are you qualified as a project manager? So that's happening to us. It'll happen to you in the next 5 years or so.
It will come here. I mean, from education perspective, now Tartu University has the Pärnu College is actually teaching project management as a profession on higher education.
And what's also happening is a lot of effort put into what's called alignment, which is what we're trying to do there, where this is equivalent to that, or equivalence as they're called, and how do you cover the competencies, and is it just about knowledge or is some experience? And that will result in bridging, which means you can take credits from one qualification and count them to another, so you don't have to go back to the bottom of the stuff. So there's quite a lot of work taking place there. So that's why, although I'm an APM and IPMA person, if you've got Prince 2 or you've got PMP from PMI, then it's okay, because sooner or later we'll be able to credit and bridge and you'll be able to move on. APM is also trying to be a chartered body, which means it could be a chartered project professional, which will grade, it's not at the top, it's not above, it's sort of just above halfway. So there's a lot going on with these qualifications in project management. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this was a very good and useful comment. And I think we should go to lunch now, actually, if there is no more questions.